Welcome, Gemini, to your love reading for the week of the 9th to the 15th of March 2020. So we do have a full moon in Virgo that does activate your fourth house of home, family, your roots, and where you would like to be rooted at when it comes to your heart and your love relationship. So there may be some big changes around the home. It could be. But for here, I feel that there is... depending on what side of the equation you are on. If some of you is still like a theme, I realize Gemini may be going through. It's not always like this. So I know that astrology can sometimes change the momentum or what you might be dealing with. So it seems to be you're trying to figure out somebody and whether or not they have the intention of making changes for this connection to grow, where you're not really sure if they're going to stay focused and, for the long term and make sure that they do what they need to do, even if they're somewhere safe, they're not working, finding something that's going to handle their financial commitments or whether resources, whatever they might need. But if they are somewhere and if they're not liking it so much, find something else. Maybe you had this conversation with that person, moving on, making some changes and seeing what happens. And it's almost like until then, you're kind of staying put. I get a sense of it's almost like throwing up the blinders between you and that person. So you're not really looking at each other. You're looking again in a different direction, kind of waiting. So Monday and Tuesday, that's how I kind of see that. But you're also trying to figure out, can you leave someone to their own devices and do what they need to do? And will they come back if you let them go? That's how I kind of see that. Them kind of, will they tap you, on the shoulder to say, hey, let's try to make this work, or let's get things done, or whatever. Because if you do let them go, you might feel like you might never hear from them again, or they're just going to, have you run around in circles, over and over again. So I feel like you're trying to figure out whether or not you can trust your own intuition of their plans and vice versa. All right, so we have Pisces, we have another Gemini, we have an earth sign, then we have Aries here for some. So give your relationship a chance, work on your partnership, and very soon clearly decide what you want so that it comes to you now. And that's definitely for some of you being patient. So Monday and Tuesday is kind of the wait and see, taking things slow to see how it might be, but you might feel that person might not be on your wavelength. They might not be mature enough to focus or follow through. So then you're having to kind of make a decision on what to do. So that is going to be Monday and Tuesday. So Gemini, for Wednesday through Friday, I definitely see it's almost like a pondering kind of thing. So for Monday and Tuesday, you're thinking about, is this going to work or whatever? You're waiting for that person to come back. But then it seems like Wednesday through Friday, this person, either you choose to be single and do your own thing, and that causes a bit of anger, resentment from the other person. But I see here as well where the other person is not really coming through emotionally throughout that time. So there is a kind of letting go. It brings a bit of tension, maybe a little bit of resentment that might be there, and the tension could intensify a bit. But I ultimately feel like this is a kind of leaning on you and focusing on yourself, and just kind of allowing things to be what it's going to be Wednesday through Friday, because I can see the other person is kind of backing away. There might not be any communication or really opening up. And even if they do, there's just this kind of not being on the same page again. So I can feel walking away from something kind of that you've maybe overly invested in, and then having a little bit of temperament issues there. But make sure that you don't stress out and bring up a lot of that tension, because again, you could hurt yourself emotionally and physically sometimes. So that's going to be Wednesday through Friday. So Gemini, as we look into Saturday and Sunday, I see here that there's the Aries had this as well, where the obsessiveness is there, being in the mind, and the Four of Swords in reverse can be to an extreme level. So try to relax and try to do your best to meditate. That's advice coming through that you have to take right away. You don't have to take it, but try to. because I feel it can be very tormenting. So Hangman in reverse, Lovers, that came out again, Death, Wheel of Fortune in reverse. So 4 major arcana, so big life changes that are happening. And I feel here for some of you, if you lost somebody, going through a transition of a loved one and constantly thinking about that person, I was often telling people, well, I know, as a psychic medium, knowing someone that I've been around for some time, and from childhood, I wonder where they were, and they wound up popping up somewhere, and I've seen them, and I saw them like every other day, and they popped up. But before that, I was having these dreams about that person, and it was on this it was on a different dimension, so to speak. And I was seeing this person. I was so happy to see them, but they manifest in my reality to come through as some kind of confirmation, because we either needed to communicate or just to see one another. And I wanted that to happen, but it had me realize something, that sometimes things can change in an instant, and sometimes we hold on to people at times when we often need to let them go. And the universe is always going to allow us to hold on to that relationship and continue to give it a chance. And yes, that's always a decision that you have to make, but it's ultimately to let you know that the universe brings people in your life for spiritual growth and lessons. And sometimes we have to decide whether or not this person is someone that we're constantly waiting on to have us stuck in a cycle of conflict. Sometimes that person can come around and they can be there, and then they disappear, and they're there and they disappear. That's almost like a ghost, so to speak. That's how I see that kind of energy coming through. So sometimes it's the ghost of the past that you might be holding on, and literally the universe can make people appear in your reality and disappear and never to return. It feels like that's why I use the word ghosted. Why do you think they use that? Sometimes they never return because they were an apparition or a figment of your imagination in some way, and they're not meant to be in your life once you start to raise your vibration. And once you lower it and you beg for this person to come back, when they come back and you go over the same thing again and again, it's letting you know something. So there's a lesson to be learned with someone that you might be dealing with, but ultimately it's not very it's not negative here, but it can get negative if you are obsessively thinking about something. So it's to tell you, if you have access to somebody, if you're communicating with this person, you made plans, changes, it's telling you to be patient. But if it's not happening, if there's a lack of communication or they're not coming around and you've been waiting and waiting, it's letting you know that something else is going on here. So try to be patient with that realization for Saturday and Sunday, and then you're having to decide what you actually want to do. So relax yourself, be patient about the process, and try to figure out what side of the equation you might be on, as I mentioned what I mentioned there. So I feel like that's for a reason. All right. So I hope the messages did help. I wish you the very best. You can always come to me for a private or personal reading if you would like to, and you can email me. So have a good one.